let's look at Candace, for example, because this is a situation where, she had said that I had betrayed her as well. This is why she doesn't like me anymore. This is why she turned on me, is because there was a whole debate over whether Christ is king is something that, the Groypers are saying. Is it anti-Semitic? Isn't it anti-Semitic? This is a public conversation that's happening, right? And this is happening around the time that she's exiting the Daily Wire. I don't know if maybe she already had, maybe she hadn't yet. I'm not sure, but it is something that she had said in response to Ben Shapiro. And there's this debate going on around whether or not Christ is king is anti-Semitic. So she's talking about it publicly. I chime in the comments and say, well, in my experience, Christ is king. First of all, I'm a Christian myself. So I proclaim that Christ is king. I think Christ is king of the entire universe. He is God and creator of the universe. And that, ultimately we're all subject to his rulership, whether we like it or not, or whether we admit it or not. So I'm a Christ is king person. But there are people showing up in my comments, for example, saying things like, Christ is king, you dirty Jew. Now, when I hear somebody say that, they're on the one hand leading off with a phrase that many Christians would identify with, while at the same time expressing disdain or hatred for people of a certain religious belief or ethnicity. And I don't see compatibility between those two things. I see them as being at odds with each other. And I think it's an abuse of Christ's name to pair it with that kind of hatred. You can't affirm that Christ is king and all the things that come with that, including that we're made in God's image and that we all have dignity and rights and value in light of the fact that we're made in God's image, while all disparaging people because of, their beliefs or their identity. I think that's wrong, and I think it's an abuse of Christ's name to try to take that phrase and use it as like a cudgel to beat Jews over the head with. I think that's wrong. So there's some nuance to this, Candace. This is what I was saying to Candace in my comment. There's nuance to this. No, the phrase is not anti-Semitic. Yes, anti-Semites sometimes abuse the phrase. I think we could probably agree on that. Maybe, maybe not. But thanks for starting this conversation. I think it's an important conversation to have. That's all I said to Candace.
That's the betrayal.
That's the betrayal. So and when she went on Tucker's show and she said that I betrayed her, she cited my disagreement with her on Christ is King as the reason for that. She didn't quote me. They didn't throw the tweet up there on the screen so that we could all see it and see what I actually said. He didn't press her to try to figure out, well, what was it that Seth actually said that was a betrayal?
They can't put her tweet on the screen either because she insists that she never said it to a Jew. But of course, she was saying it to Ben Shapiro in a conflict in which she was invoking scripture.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess my point, what I'm trying to get at here is that, these characterizations are mischaracterizations done very deliberately for the purpose of harming my reputation and making me look bad in front of their massive audience.
But you would agree that these are actual relationships between actual people, and because they're personal relationships to some degree, there is a requirement to deal with certain issues personally. I mean, have you tried to deal with either Candace or Tucker personally during any of this conflict?
Yeah. Well, but this one in particular, the Christ is King thing, I was very gracious and respectful in that response. So again, this wasn't a situation. I even said in my response to her, I'm not saying that you've abused the phrase necessarily. I'm saying I've seen it abused. I'm not accusing you of anti-Semitism. I'm not accusing you of abusing the Lord's name. I'm saying I've seen it abused myself. And so I think that there are cases where Christ is King can be adopted by anti-Semitism, including there are actually cases where people have said explicitly that they use that phrase to identify each other as Groypers. They use it to try to, stick it to the Jews, whatever. And so, to say that and to say it graciously and say, this is my contribution to this discussion. I'm saying this respectfully. I'm not really even disagreeing with you in a deep and meaningful way where I'm saying, you're really wrong about this and here's why you're so wrong. I'm just adding some nuance. That's it. There's a little bit of nuance here that's being missed, and I'm just adding that. So I didn't feel that rose to the level of needing to have some kind of private thing because I wasn't being, you're saying does the harshness of it come into play? I think sure it does, but that wasn't harsh. I wasn't being harsh. I wasn't being unfair. I think I was being extremely charitable and kind and gracious in the way that I framed it. And anybody can go look it up and see what I actually said.
And I suppose one could also say, should she have called you before she accused you of betrayal? Or should Tucker have
Yeah.
contacted you before he accused you of betrayal? I mean, the standard, if there's a standard, it has to apply.
It has to apply both ways. Yes, I'm not. I have never received that benefit of the doubt or that charity from them. Now, yes, there have been attempts. I hate having conflict with people. Like I said, I wasn't looking for conflict. I wasn't trying to create enemies out of people. I am willing to disagree with my friends on issues of importance that I think they're on the wrong side of, and that where they are publicly promoting something that I think is a bad idea. I have no issue with. In fact, I do think we have a moral duty to stand up against even our own friends when they're promoting bad ideology. And so I'm willing to do that. I don't want to have to do that. And I'm also willing to have private conversations with them to try to understand them better, because I would rather not be having a public conversation about some of these issues where, it's all about scoring points and slinging insults and trying to ratio the other person, when you can just pick up the phone and call somebody and talk to them. So,
So
yeah,
tell me about those attempts. You said there
yeah,
have been attempts.
I have had those attempts. I've reached out to both. I've had personal interaction where I've reached out to both myself proactively. I initiated it with both Candace and Tucker over the course of the last couple of years. A couple of times. Where do you want to start with which one? I mean, the most recent attempt was with Tucker after Charlie died, after he was killed. I reached out to Tucker and I said, look, we clearly don't see eye to eye on some things. We've had some negative interaction publicly, some back and forth. But there is no reason why we can't find a way to reconcile on a personal level, where we say, if I've mischaracterized anything that you've said or done, I'm willing to apologize for that. I'm open to having a conversation where we try to bury the hatchet and just put that behind us, especially in light of the fact that something's happened to Charlie. This could happen to any of us. It could happen to any of us at any time. And it wouldn't sit right with me if it happened to one of us without us ever having made an effort on that level, despite how deeply I disagree with some of the things that he says. I was willing to say that. I wanted him to hear that from me. Initially, he was receptive to that. He said something like, amen. I think this is important. It was something brief like that. And then it wasn't long after that someone, apparently he hadn't been aware that I had commented on Charlie's post saying that Tucker shouldn't be a speaker at AmFest. And I guess someone made him aware of that. And this was after I had reached out to him privately. So he's following up now later, a couple weeks later or something, saying, I wanted to reach out to you directly because I've been told that you were telling Charlie that I shouldn't be at AmFest. And I wanted to hear from you directly if that's true. Were you bullying Charlie and trying to coerce him into not having me at AmFest or whatever? I was like, well, I certainly wasn't bullying him. I expressed my opinion that I don't think that your message should be amplified from that stage. No, I think it should be repudiated from that stage. I stand by that. It was a public comment. That's my opinion, and I'm allowed to share my opinion. And so we had a back and forth about that, where he was prying me for more information, and I had to ask him. I was like, are we having a conversation, just the two of us, or are you looking for content for your show? Right. And because he was about to go live, he's like, I need a response quickly. And I'm like, why do you need a response quickly? What is this for your show? And he wouldn't answer that. And so he immediately, on the heels of that dialogue where I'm explaining, the conversation that I had publicly with Charlie, he then goes on the air and says that, I was one of these thugs and bullies who was pressuring Charlie behind the scenes. And he said behind the scenes too, when there was none of that happening behind the scenes at all. What I was referring to and what I explained to Tucker was literally a public comment.
Right.
So he got the truth from me and then went with his narrative anyway.